They said there was no room at the table for my daughter. So I made sure there was no room left for them in our lives. My name is Danielle, and for years, I played the good daughter. The reliable one. The one who picked up the tab when dad's truck broke down or mom's meds weren't covered. The one who paid the electric bill, just this once, every single winter. I'm also a doctor. My husband Marcus is a teacher. We have one child, our daughter Isla. She's 17 now. Brilliant, kind, always the peacemaker. And for some reason, my parents never warmed to her. I used to think maybe they just weren't kid people. But that excuse stopped working when my sister Melanie's daughter Lily was born. Suddenly there were scrapbooks, handmade Halloween costumes, sleepovers, birthday parties with clowns. Lily was their pride and joy. Isla, she was the afterthought. And for a long time, I tried to cushion the blow. I didn't want her to feel unwanted. I made excuses for my parents' neglect. Told myself they were just old, just forgetful. That maybe it was in my head. But kids notice. They always notice. Melanie's husband left last year. She's been in a tight spot since. Moved back in with our parents. It was supposed to be temporary. But months turned to a year. Then this past fall, she asked me for money. Not a loan. Money. Lily got into a really competitive science camp, she said, but the tuition's insane. I figured you'd want to help. Practical, thoughtful Isla wouldn't dream of demanding that kind of money from me. I told Melanie no, politely but firmly. I explained I was already covering our parents' mortgage, medical bills, and emergencies. Suggested she apply for financial aid or a payment plan. Her tone changed instantly. Wow, must be nice to have everything and still be stingy. She's your niece. You're just jealous Lily's actually going places. That would have been funny, if I hadn't overheard my mom mutter something similar later that week. Apparently, I was holding Lily back. Just like I always held Melanie back by being the smart one who made everyone else look bad. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just said no, and I meant it. That was 3 weeks before Christmas. Isla was excited to go to Christmas dinner. Said she felt grown up being trusted to drive there herself. She packed an overnight bag and even wrapped presents for her little cousins. I told her to text when she arrived. She did. Everything seemed fine. Hours later, I came home to find her curled on the couch, still in her holiday sweater. She looked up with a wobbly smile like she was begging me to pretend everything was okay. They said there wasn't space, she whispered. Not at the table. Not in the guest room. Nowhere. She counted 28 people seated. 28. Even the neighbors were invited. Everyone but her. I sat with her in silence. Let her cry. Let her fall asleep in my arms. Later that night, I stared at the empty spot on the counter where her Christmas dinner should have been. I thought about every mortgage payment, every doctor's bill, every sacrifice. And I realized, they didn't run out of space. They ran out of gratitude. And they used my daughter to send the message. That's when the switch flipped. No more polite conversations. No more quiet enabling. Not after what they did to Isla. The next morning, Marcus and I drove over. I brought an envelope. The house, my house, was in my name. I'd been paying the mortgage for 7 years. But they had forgotten that. Or pretended to. I rang the bell. No one answered. So I tucked the envelope into the doorframe and turned to leave. That's when my mom stepped out, wrapped in her fuzzy 90% off holiday robe. She opened the envelope, read the eviction notice, and screamed like I'd set the house on fire. Frank, she's throwing us out. Dad staggered to the door. Melanie appeared next, still in pajamas, clutching a mug like it was just another cozy holiday morning. Mom pointed at me like I was a stray animal who'd defiled her front porch. You ungrateful little. We drove away. By the time we got home, my phone was buzzing nonstop. 32 missed calls, 14 texts, 3 voicemails. You've lost your mind, Mom shouted on one call. You're no daughter of ours, Dad bellowed in the background. Not a single word about Isla. One cousin texted, not my place, but this feels extreme. You only get one mom. Yeah, and my daughter only gets one mom, too. The next morning, Mom showed up at my house. Still in that robe, holding the eviction letter, now crumpled and damp. You're really doing this? She asked. I paid for this house. I covered your medical bills. I gave and gave. We raised you, she snapped. You turned my daughter away on Christmas. We didn't have enough chairs, she lied. There were 28 people. Even the neighbors were there. She tried to rip up the eviction letter like that would make it go away. Then she said it. We'll forgive you if you pay for Lily's science camp and drop this tantrum. That was it. They never took me seriously. Not when I was a kid. Not when I became a doctor. Not even now. So I followed through. I met with a lawyer. We served a formal 60-day eviction notice. I stopped paying for anything but the mortgage. No more electricity. No more reimbursements. They got a crash course in what no help actually looks like. Melanie took them in. Of course she did. Said I was tearing the family apart. But 3 weeks later, she was on my doorstep, hair a mess, eyes puffy. I can't do it, she said. They hate the noise. They complain constantly. They won't share a bathroom. I'm going insane. They turned away Isla, and you said nothing, I replied. That was your choice. This is mine. She left. A week later, she kicked them out, too. They landed in a run-down rental. 2 rooms. 1 heater. A slanted front step. Their pensions barely covered rent and groceries. They called everyone. Said I was cold. That I cut them off without warning. But I had receipts. Literally. I sent cousins copies of every bill I'd paid. Forwarded time-stamped eviction letters. Most of them backed off. One sent a thumbs-up emoji. 2 months later, Isla and I sat on the porch sipping iced tea. I don't miss them, she said. Me either. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hope you're proud of what you've done. Delete. No pause. They'll probably text again, Isla said. They always do, I replied. But they're not our problem anymore. And they weren't. They said there was no room for Isla at the table. Now there's no room in our lives for cruelty, control, or manipulation. 2 years later, they're still in that crumbling rental. Still blaming everyone but themselves. Isla's thriving. The house sale paid for her education, and a future free of toxic obligation. As for me, I sleep better. I protected my daughter. I chose her. Finally. But tell me, did I go too far? Or just far enough? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell.